Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tearing down decades of nutritional dogma. We're going to throw out the marketing hype and focus purely on what the most rigorous, hard science reveals about our bodies. We're diving straight into the data to investigate the true impact of our cultural obsession with protein. Specifically, we'll uncover how the type of protein you consume directly affects fasting, aging, and overall mortality. It's a journey that is absolutely going to challenge everything you thought you knew about building a healthy body.
So let me ask you, are you obsessed with getting enough protein? Because honestly, we're all constantly bombarded by aggressive marketing campaigns telling us that more is always better. It's literally everywhere, from grocery store aisles plastered with high-protein labels to fitness blogs pushing endless shakes. We've been culturally conditioned to obsess over hitting these massive daily targets. But we really need to rethink this narrative entirely, because the data is telling a completely different story. It turns out we've been asking the wrong question all along. Here's the scientific truth, and this is backed by massive, unprecedented data sets. The source of your protein, meaning where it actually comes from, is infinitely more critical to your health and longevity than the sheer quantity you consume. For years, we've been trained to view food merely as a collection of macronutrients, essentially just counting grams of protein as if they exist in a vacuum. But protein doesn't exist in a vacuum. It comes meticulously packaged at a microscopic level, and that packaging changes the whole shebang. To really understand this, we have to look at the absolute gold standard of nutritional data, starting with a landmark study, the 2016 Harvard study. Now, this wasn't just some tiny short-term trial. It involved more than 100,000 participants. And when you're looking at nutritional science, size matters. When you have over 100,000 people in a study tracked over a long period of time, the statistical noise just fades away. The margin of error plummets, and the absolute biological facts shine through with incredible clarity. And hey, if that wasn't enough to convince you, consider the NIH AARP Diet and Health Study. They tracked a staggering 400,000 people. Guys, this is literally the largest diet cohort study in human history. We're talking about nearly 500,000 individual physiological journeys that were documented, analyzed, and cross-referenced. And they reached a similar, undeniable conclusion about the profound long-term impact of where we get our protein, reinforcing those Harvard findings on a massive scale. So, what did both of these massive data sets reveal? Something remarkable. Replacing just 3% of your calories from animal protein with plant protein radically reduces your risk of premature death. Think about how microscopic a 3% change in your daily calories actually is. That's the equivalent of swapping out just one small snack or a tiny side dish during your day. Yet, that virtually imperceptible life-saving substitution is enough to completely change your entire mortality trajectory. I know, it sounds almost impossible. You might be wondering, how can a microscopic 3% shift completely alter your lifespan? It almost feels too good to be true that such a tiny, everyday tweak can wield such a dramatic, life-saving impact on our physiology. I mean, if we're just talking about amino acids, why does swapping out a handful of calories make the difference between accelerated aging and vibrant longevity? Well, the answer requires us to look a bit closer at the underlying mechanisms. The answer actually lies in the toxic chemical culprits that hitchhike inside animal protein. Like I mentioned earlier, protein doesn't exist in a vacuum. When you consume it from an animal, you aren't just getting protein. You're getting some very heavy, serious baggage. It's a package deal, and unfortunately, that package includes compounds that wreak absolute havoc on our bodies. We're talking about BCAAs, dioxins, and PCBs. Let's break down exactly what these hitchhikers are doing once they get inside you. First up, branched-chain amino acids. Animal protein is naturally highly concentrated in these BCAAs, and while fitness marketing loves to push them as some sort of muscle-building miracle, the clinical data paints a much darker picture for longevity. High BCAA exposure from animal sources essentially overloads your mitochondria and disrupts your body's insulin signaling. This chronic overload is strongly linked to insulin resistance, literally forcing your metabolism into a state of rapid decline rather than healthy optimization. Furthermore, we've got to talk about bioaccumulating pollutants. Because animals eat massive amounts of food over their entire lifetimes, they filter and store environmental toxins right in their fat and tissue. They essentially act as highly concentrated delivery systems for harmful industrial pollutants. When you consume them, you become the final dumping ground for a lifetime of accumulated toxic chemicals. We're talking about heavy-hitting pollutants like dioxins and PCBs being delivered straight onto your plate and straight into your cells.
But perhaps the most alarming culprit of all is a hormone called IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor 1. You can basically think of this hormone like a cellular gas pedal for tumors. Its primary function is to tell cells to multiply and grow rapidly. Now, while that's great when you're a growing child, as an adult, it's exactly what you don't want. Because if there are any mutating or damaged cells in your body, IGF-1 provides the exact fuel they need to proliferate.
And consuming animal protein literally slams down on that gas pedal. Our modern diet, which is so heavy in animal products, keeps your IGF-1 levels dangerously elevated in your bloodstream around the clock. By constantly pressing down on this growth pedal, your body never gets a chance to rest or repair. You're essentially priming your internal environment for disease proliferation, feeding potential tumors, rather than allowing your natural cellular defense mechanisms to actually do their job and protect you. Which brings us to an incredible plot twist for all the longevity hackers out there who practice intermittent fasting. The whole reason people fast is to trigger autophagy, which is a state of deep cellular cleanup, and to intentionally lower growth hormones like IGF-1 so the body can heal. But if you aren't paying attention to your protein source, you might be completely sabotaging your own fast, undoing all of that hard work and physiological discipline. See, when you combine fasting with plant protein, your IGF-1 stays remarkably low. Your cellular cleanup continues smoothly, and your longevity benefits remain completely intact. But the moment you combine fasting with a high animal protein diet, you chemically neutralize those anti-aging and cellular repair benefits. It skyrockets those growth hormone levels right back up, slamming that gas pedal once again. It's a complete biological sabotage, but one that is entirely avoided when you simply fuel up with plant protein instead. And this is exactly why the data shows that the more plant protein you eat, the lower your risk of dying prematurely. Plant protein is truly the optimal fuel. It provides absolutely all the essential amino acids and building blocks your body needs to thrive, but it does so without all that toxic baggage. You get the strength and energy you require without the heavy industrial pollutants, and without dangerously spiking your IGF-1 growth hormones. So, how much do you actually need? Well, forget the massive numbers pushed by the supplement industry. The scientifically sound formula you need for a long, healthy life is exactly 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of healthy body weight. That's it. It's incredibly achievable. On a normal balanced diet, you can easily hit this target through everyday plant foods like beans, lentils, and nuts, without ever needing aggressive supplementation or a constant intake of heavy animal products. Ultimately, this all boils down to a fundamental question of cellular defense. What kind of blood do you want flowing through your veins? Every time you sit down to eat, you're making a choice. Do you want to build a system that actively feeds disease through elevated growth hormones and accumulated toxins? Or do you want to cultivate an environment that's primed to suppress illness, constantly repairing and actively healing from the inside out? We now have the largest studies in human history, like that 2016 Harvard study, and the staggering NIH AARP study, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that the source of your protein matters far more than the amount. We know for sure that a microscopic 3% plant protein swap can literally save your life by shutting off that cellular gas pedal. So, armed with this undeniable science, will you still believe the protein myth, or how will you rethink your next meal?